Have you ever noticed some of the most powerful things in life are never really finished? A painting left half complete, a song that fades before the last note, a dream that never quite came true. In a world obsessed with polished endings, there's something hauntingly beautiful about what's left undone. It's raw, it's real, and somehow it feels even more alive. Why do unfinished things touch us so deeply? Maybe it's because they leave space for us. They invite our imagination to step in, to complete the story in our own hearts. Some of history's most breathtaking works are unfinished. Michelangelo's figures, trapped in marble. Kafka's stories, ending mid-sentence. They're not broken, they're breathing. They're still becoming, just like us. The late afternoon light falls on a cracked ceramic cup, illuminating the tiny fractures in its glaze. To one person, it might seem ruined. To another, those delicate cracks shine like rivers on a map, telling the story of every drop of tea ever held and every hand that ever lifted it. There is a quiet, unexpected beauty here. We are unfinished too. No matter how much we plan, dream, or build, we're all works in progress. Messy, unfolding, beautiful in ways we often can't even see. And maybe that's the point. Isn't it freeing to realize that your half-built dreams, your messy beginnings, your unanswered questions, they matter? That there's beauty in the becoming, not just the end? The beauty of unfinished things is the beauty of life itself. Open, raw, full of endless possibility. Sometimes it's the spaces between the notes that make the music unforgettable. Sometimes it's the stories without endings that stay with us the longest. So today, let's celebrate the beauty of not being done. Because maybe the best parts of life are the ones we're still writing. Cracks. Where the light enters. There comes a moment in every life when something breaks. A dream collapses. A relationship shatters. The body fails, or the mind becomes a storm. Grief arrives without asking, and there we are, standing in the rubble of what we thought was solid. We often try to sweep these moments aside, to hide them behind smiles or silence. But what if the broken places are not just damage, but doorways? All across the world, quiet voices have told us, there is something sacred in the crack, in the flaw, in the wound. The poet Rumi, born of the Persian mystic tradition, wrote, "The wound is the place where the light enters you." He wasn't speaking in metaphor alone. He meant that pain, real soul-deep pain, can open us. When the surface of life breaks, it lets something unexpected through: humility, compassion, clarity. That light doesn't always come quickly. It arrives like the slow dawn, not the lightning strike. But once it begins to shine, we see the world and ourselves differently. This wisdom echoes in Christianity too, where it's said that we carry treasure in jars of clay. We are fragile vessels, easily chipped, often cracked, but the cracks are not just failures. They are how the treasure inside is seen. In this view, strength doesn't mean never breaking. Strength means staying open when we do. The Japanese tradition of kintsugi captures this more literally. When a ceramic bowl breaks, it is not thrown away. It is repaired with gold. The repair does not try to hide the break, it honors it. The bowl, once cracked, becomes more valuable, not less. The golden lines are a visible memory of what happened and how it healed. They say, this was broken, and this is how it was loved back to wholeness. Isn't that how we are too? We carry our own golden seams, lines of memory where grief once split us open, where time smoothed jagged edges, where others helped hold us together. We are mosaics of joy and sorrow, of things lost and things learned, and yet we spend so much energy pretending we're uncracked. We polish ourselves until we are smooth and forgettable, when perhaps it's the visible scars that make us unforgettable. Ancient cultures often embraced this truth more fully than we do now. In traditional Navajo weaving, for example, A small spirit line is woven into the rug, a path for the spirit to move, and a quiet acceptance that nothing is perfect. Perfection, they believed, was for the divine. Humans create with their hands, and hands are always a little flawed. But in those flaws is breath, soul, presence. Even in nature, brokenness is part of design. Trees struck by lightning still grow, twisting their trunks toward the sun. Rivers carve new paths when the old ones dry. Animals heal with scars that make them stronger. The earth doesn't hide its wounds. It turns them into canyons, cliffs, rings in the bark. It wears its history in plain sight. Why should we be any different? There is a quiet beauty in choosing not to cover the crack, not to rush past the grief. When we stay with it, when we let ourselves feel the pain and also allow it to shape us, we discover something deeper than survival. We find transformation. This chapter of life, the cracked one, is not the end of the book. It's a turning point, and it might be the place where the light finally gets in. The elegance of incompletion. We are taught to chase the finish line, to complete the story, the task, the painting, the plan, to arrive at the perfect ending, wrap things up neatly, and move on. There's comfort in closure, but sometimes the most beautiful things are those that are never fully done. There's a quiet grace in what's left open. Consider a melody that stops before its final note. It lingers in the air. It leaves a space inside you that echoes long after the music fades. The composer Franz Schubert never finished his symphony number 8. Only 2 movements were completed, and the rest was left behind. Still, people call it the unfinished symphony and love it just as it is. It doesn't feel broken. It feels alive, mysterious, full of emotion. Maybe that's because it mirrors life, unresolved, unfinished, and full of feeling. Sometimes, what we don't finish says more than what we do. In Japan, artists and poets from the Zen tradition often worked in a way that left things incomplete on purpose. A painting might leave a whole section blank, just empty paper or silk. A poem might end in a pause, an image without explanation. The silence, the space, was part of the art. It gave the viewer or reader room to breathe, to imagine, to enter into the work. In this way, the art became a conversation, not a monologue. It didn't try to control or impress, it simply invited. There is courage in not finishing everything. In ancient Greece, the sculptors of marble gods and heroes created works that aimed for perfection. But many of the statues we admire today are missing limbs, faces, or chunks of stone. Time has worn them down. Yet their presence hasn't faded. It has deepened. The Venus de Milo with her missing arms is still one of the most beloved sculptures in the world. Part of her beauty is in what's absent. We don't love her less because she's incomplete. We love her more because of what she suggests rather than shows. She asks us to imagine, to feel, to wonder. In many ways, unfinished things ask more of us. They invite us to join in. A perfect story, perfectly told, gives you everything. It satisfies, but sometimes it doesn't stay with you. The stories that leave questions hanging, that end in a quiet breath rather than a final word, those are the ones that haunt us. We return to them in our thoughts. We fill in the missing pieces with our own hearts. There's a deep human truth in that. We are all unfinished. Every life is a work in progress. Even at the end of life, most people still have thoughts unspoken, things left undone, dreams that never found their wings. And yet, a life can still be full, meaningful, beautiful, even if not everything was completed. In many indigenous traditions, the world itself is seen as a circle, not a straight line. There's no final point, only seasons, cycles, returning. In this view, nothing is ever truly done. The story continues in the next generation, in the wind, in the soil. Your part might be one verse in a long song, one step in a dance that goes on long after you're gone. And that's not failure. That's belonging. Even in our daily lives, there's grace in not rushing to finish. The half-written letter, the half-painted wall, the garden that's still growing. These are signs of life, not weakness. They show that we are still learning, still moving, still here. They remind us that life isn't a product, it's a process. What if we stopped seeing incompletion as absence and started seeing it as invitation? What if the things left undone are not flaws, but open hands? A poem missing its final line says, "Add your voice." A path with no end says, "Keep walking." A moment that fades too soon says, "Be present, now." To live is to be always becoming. Not everything needs to be finished. Not every question needs an answer. Some things are most powerful when left in soft silence, when they trail off gently, asking you to carry them forward. There is a strange and sacred grace in this, the grace of things unfinished, the grace of things still becoming. Let them be. Beauty carved by time. Some things grow more beautiful with time, not because they stay the same, but because they change, slowly, quietly, in ways that only patience and living can teach. A well-worn chair with its faded cushion, a tree twisted by wind, but still reaching for the sun. A pair of hands lined by years of work and care. These things tell stories that newness cannot. In a world that praises the young, the flawless, the fast, we forget to honor the slow and the aged. But there is a different kind of beauty, one that is soft, deep, and shaped by time. This chapter is about that kind of beauty, the kind that comes from being worn and weathered. In Japan, there is a love for old things that have lasted through seasons and storms. An old wooden tea house with creaking floors, a stone path smoothed by generations of footsteps. These things are not seen as broken or outdated. They are seen as alive with memory and soul. This idea is part of Wabi-Sabi, the way of seeing value in the imperfect. A shiny new bowl may catch the eye, but the one passed down from a grandmother, with a chip in the rim and a story in every stain, is the one that truly holds meaning. Its wear is not damage. It's a record of use, love, and time. Something similar exists in the Christian tradition, where old churches stand weathered by rain and wind. Their stones are cracked. Their walls bear marks from centuries past. And yet, when people walk inside, they feel something sacred. Not despite the wear, but because of it. The age of the space speaks of devotion carried across generations. Every worn pew, every faded painting whispers that time has passed through here. In Chinese philosophy, Taoism teaches us to live in harmony with nature. It tells us to be like water, soft but strong. Water wears down the hardest rock, not by force, but by persistence. In the same way, time shapes us gently and endlessly. The Tao says that being old is not being used up. It is being full of experience. A bent tree may not be straight, but it has stood through every season. Its shape is its strength. In indigenous cultures, elders are often seen as the wisdom keepers. Their stories carry the past into the future. Their bodies may slow, but their presence deepens. Wrinkles, white hair, and weathered skin are not things to hide. They are signs of having lived, of having seen. Many Native American languages don't even have a word for old. Aging is sacred. Even in the simplest objects, this truth can be felt. A leather journal with curled corners and pages yellowed with time. A kitchen table scratched from meals and homework and long talks. A family quilt stitched by hands, still warming new generations. These items are not perfect, but they are loved. And their imperfections are the marks of that love. There is something deeply human about this kind of beauty. We too are shaped by time. Life rubs against us through loss, love, hard choices, and quiet joys. We come away changed, a little softer maybe, a little scarred, but also stronger, wiser, deeper. And yet, we often fight the signs of aging. We cover our gray hair, we chase youth. We measure beauty by smoothness, by tightness, by what is untouched. But untouched does not mean real, and smooth does not always mean alive. To be worn out is to be hardened by life, and to be hardened is to have lived. There is something deeply comforting about a person who has lived long enough to have been broken and mended and still smiles. Their laughter may be quieter, but it rings deeper. Their advice may be simple, but it carries weight. They don't rush. They don't pretend. They know what matters and what doesn't. In some cultures, stones worn smooth by rivers are kept as talismans. People hold them in their hands when they need grounding. These stones have no sharp edges. Time has softened them, made them kind. People, too, can become like that. So maybe we should learn to look again at the cracked mug that still holds coffee, at the old coat that has kept out 100 storms, at the mirror, where lines now live where youth once was, and instead of seeing loss, see gain. Time is not an enemy. It is an artist, and its masterpiece is not perfection but depth. Worn things do not ask for attention, but they give comfort if we let them. They tell us, you don't have to be new to be beautiful. You just have to be real. The art of loving things as they are. Some things cannot be fixed. Some questions don't have answers. Some moments pass before we can understand them. And that's okay. There is a quiet wisdom in learning how to let things be, not because we don't care, but because we finally understand that not everything can or should be controlled. This chapter is about the gentle power of acceptance. The peace that comes from not forcing things to be perfect, whole, or finished. The grace in allowing life to unfold in its own time and shape. In ancient Taoist teachings from China, there is a deep respect for the natural flow of things. The Tao, often translated as the way, is not something to chase or change. It is something to follow, gently, like a leaf riding a river. It says, do you have the patience to wait till your mud settles and the water is clear? This is not just poetry. It is a lesson that clarity comes not from pushing, but from stillness. Sometimes trying too hard only makes things worse. When we rush to fix a problem, to mend a heartbreak, or to complete something just to feel done, we may miss the beauty of what's already here. We may miss the quiet moment where healing begins on its own. Not everything broken needs to be glued back together. Some things just need space to breathe. In Zen practice, there's an idea called just sitting. No goal, no fixing, no improving. You sit with what is. Your thoughts come and go. You don't chase them or judge them. You just watch. In that space, you begin to see how life moves on its own, like clouds passing overhead. Not everything needs our interference. Some things are better left untouched. Letting be is not the same as giving up. It is a kind of deep trust. It's saying, I will do what I can, and then I will let the rest unfold. It's stepping back when we've done our part, instead of tightening our grip out of fear. It's giving up the need to polish every rough edge, to fill every silence, to reach for perfection that never really arrives. Nature shows us this every day. A tree does not rush to grow. It does not worry about its shape. It leans into the sun, bends in the wind, drops its leaves when it must. A river does not argue with a rock. It flows around it, slowly shaping it over time. A garden does not bloom on command. It follows the rhythms of the earth. We too are part of nature. But we forget. We try to control our paths, our feelings, our futures. We chase constant improvement. We think peace comes from having everything figured out. But sometimes, peace is what arrives when we stop trying so hard. Letting be means making room for mystery, for uncertainty, for surprise. It means allowing others to be who they are, not who we want them to be. It means forgiving ourselves for not having all the answers. It means honoring the moment, even if it's messy, incomplete, or unclear. In some indigenous cultures, silence is sacred. Words are chosen with care. Time is not rushed. There is space for what is, even if it's unresolved. This patience, this deep listening, teaches something many of us forget, that presence is more important than progress. Letting be does not mean nothing matters. It means everything matters, just as it is. The unfinished, the flawed, the uncertain, they all belong. They are not problems to solve. They are pieces of the whole. So breathe. Loosen your grip. Let the crack stay open. Let the paint stay wet. Let the question go unanswered. And trust that sometimes the most beautiful thing you can do is simply let it be. We all break, sometimes quietly, like a hairline crack in glass, sometimes loudly, like a plate shattered on the floor. Hearts break, plans fall apart, parts of ourselves get lost. Life has its way of chipping at us, and yet we keep going. We pick up the pieces. We try to mend what was hurt. But what if healing isn't about hiding the damage? What if it's about honoring it? In Japan, there is an old practice called kintsugi, which means golden joinery. When a bowl breaks, it is not thrown away. Instead, it is carefully repaired using lacquer mixed with gold dust. The cracks are not hidden, they are highlighted. The gold runs through them like tiny rivers, turning the break into art. The bowl is not what it once was. It is more than it was. Kintsugi teaches a powerful truth. Healing can make something more beautiful than it was before, not by erasing the past, but by including it. We often try to fix ourselves or others by pretending the hurt didn't happen. We want clean slates, fresh starts, unbroken surfaces. But healing doesn't mean going back to who we were. It means becoming someone new, someone shaped by pain, but not owned by it. Just like the golden lines in a kintsugi bowl, our emotional scars can become part of our strength. They are proof that we survived, that we found a way forward. This doesn't mean healing is easy or quick. It takes time. It takes patience. It takes help. But there is beauty in the process. The slow stitching of the soul. The quiet gathering of pieces. The gold that holds it all together. Not perfect, but strong. Maybe you have cracks. Maybe you're still breaking. That's okay. You are not ruined. You are becoming something rare. So let the cracks show. Let the gold in. You are still whole, just differently whole now. And that is the golden repair, the sacred flaw. We often think of flaws as mistakes, something to fix, erase, or hide. But in many traditions, flaws are not just accepted. They are sacred. A flaw can be a sign of respect, a symbol of humility, or a doorway into something deeper than perfection ever allows. In traditional Islamic art, especially in ancient mosaics and carpets, artists would often include small imperfections on purpose. These weren't accidents. They were reminders. The belief was that only God is perfect. For a human to create something flawless would be a kind of pride, even a challenge to the divine. So the flaw became a form of worship, a whisper of humility woven into beauty. The mistake, the uneven line, the slightly off pattern, it all pointed towards something greater. Not to say, this is broken, but to say, this is human. The same spirit appears in Navajo weaving. In many rugs, the weaver leaves a small line that breaks the pattern, a spirit line. Some say it's a way to let the spirit of the maker escape the work, so it doesn't get trapped. Others say it honors the idea that nothing we make should be too perfect. Either way, the message is clear. Flaws belong. Perfection is closed, finished, unchangeable. A flaw, on the other hand, leaves space for something unexpected, for movement, for spirit, for life. Think of the people you trust the most. Are they perfect, or are they honest about their struggles? Do they have it all together, or have they let you see the parts that don't shine? It isn't in our polished words or perfect plans that we truly connect, but in the soft, trembling truth we dare to share when we feel most human. A voice that trembles when it speaks truth. A friend who admits they're afraid. A leader who owns a mistake. These are not flaws to be ashamed of. These are moments that matter. They build bridges. They remind us we're not alone. In ancient Greek stories, heroes were rarely flawless. They had great strengths, but also great faults, pride, anger, doubt. These weren't just drama, they were the heart of the story. Without the flaw, there would be no journey, no growth, no real meaning. The sacred flaw is what makes a story worth telling. And maybe it's what makes a life worth living, too. We spend so much time hiding our flaws, on our faces, in our work, in our hearts. But what if we stopped? What if the things we see as weaknesses are actually what make us real? Not perfect, not polished, but honest, human, alive. Let the pattern break, the thread show, the flaw remain, because it's often the imperfection that invites us to feel most deeply. It may be the most sacred part of all, a symphony left unfinished. Some lives don't get to finish their sentence. A loved one dies before their dream comes true. A goodbye is never said. A hope is planted, but never gets to bloom. And yet, those stories are still real, still full of meaning. This chapter is about what we leave behind when we don't get to finish, about the quiet power of unfinished lives. We grow up with the idea that everything should come full circle, that we should reach the end, tie the bow, and understand the story. But life rarely gives us that. It stops mid-step, mid-breath, mid-conversation, and it leaves us with grief, questions, and things unsaid. Still, there is something strangely beautiful about what remains. Sometimes, what a person begins becomes someone else's to continue. A teacher plants confidence in a student who carries it forward. A mother's kindness lives on in her child's touch. A friend's words echo long after they're gone. We may not finish the story, but we become part of a greater one. In many indigenous and ancestral cultures, the idea of legacy is not about fame or final results. It's about connection. A life lived with love continues through others. Even when the path stops, the footprints remain. You might never complete what you started, but someone else may pick up where you left off. This is not failure. This is how we stay part of the world even after we're gone. There's also the personal unfinished, the parts inside us that never fully form, dreams that shift, longings that linger, parts of ourselves we don't quite figure out. It's tempting to see this as being behind, but maybe it's just being alive. We are not meant to be complete. We are meant to be becoming. So if you're grieving something that didn't finish, a life, a plan, a sentence, know this. It doesn't have to be finished to be real. It doesn't have to be finished to be loved. It doesn't have to be finished to be enough. Even a life left open can still be full of meaning, especially when it is lived with heart. Conclusion: the beauty that remains. We are taught to aim for perfection, to finish what we start, to hide the cracks, to polish the edges. But life doesn't work that way. We break. We leave things unfinished. We live with flaws, doubts, scars, and silences. And yet we still shine, not in spite of these things, but because of them. Across cultures and centuries, quiet voices have reminded us that beauty is not found in the flawless, but in the real, in the worn object that still holds meaning, in the story that never quite ends, in the person who keeps showing up, even while healing. A chipped bowl, a shaky voice, an unfinished path. These carry more truth than perfection ever could. To be imperfect is to be human. To be unfinished is to be alive. To be broken and still open is to be beautiful. Let the world chase smoothness. Let the world chase certainty. But you, let your cracks show. Let your story stay open. Let your heart remain soft. There is light in what was mended. There is wonder in what was never done. There is strength in what you carry, even if it's not whole. This is the quiet truth. You do not have to be perfect to be worthy. You only have to be real. And in that, you are already enough. If you feel at home in the deeper questions, hit subscribe. There's more waiting for you.